I tried to throw cold water on her to wake her up, but she remained indifferent.
I'm quite well known in the circle. Is it so strange that someone gives me a free spot?
Her voice on the other end of the phone was a bit annoyed, but she wasn't really angry, just a bit coquettish, with a hint of that sweet scent of romance.
Stop wasting time, just tell me.
The group leader gave me a list of people for the trip. Based on my past experience, I tried to filter them and chose the most silent one.
This reason, combined with her innocent voice, was just perfect.
What kind of brain do you have? Trusting someone just because they're quiet?
Of course not. I also added him on Weibo, WeChat, and even QQ, analyzing from all angles whether this person is dangerous.
This immediately piqued my interest. If Emily used her brain, it must be someone extraordinary.
His Weibo is verified. He's a shareholder in a Fortune 500 company. Overall, he's a clumsy yet adorable person in life, but a rising star in his career. My conclusion, harmless. If you don't believe me, I'll give you his Weibo. You can check it out.
I put down my comic book, opened Weibo, and clicked on the name Emily gave me. The profile picture was of a middle-aged man in sportswear, playing tennis with a Victor limited edition racket, initials on the strings. Just as Emily said, he was a high-end elite, completely out of our league. His usual posts were about flying around the world, attending meetings, giving speeches, and participating in forums and summits. Even his travel photos were low-key yet unique. For example, a small market near the art-filled Louvre. Or a peculiar stone surrounded by wild grass near the historically rich and decaying Roman Colosseum. Even his daily meals, though not particularly exquisite, were well-balanced, showing a person who values quality of life. He was a low-key, sophisticated, and genuinely wealthy middle-aged man who didn't flaunt his wealth. Although my investigation didn't reveal any immediate red flags, I remained skeptical. So, why would a shareholder of a Fortune 500 company be interested in you? I asked.
Maybe it's my beauty and the travel guide the group leader helped me revise?
If you think that's a solid reason, then I have nothing more to say, I retorted. No matter how attractive you are, such a highly educated, highly intelligent, highly capable man wouldn't mix with us ordinary folks. So, how did a complete stranger win your heart in just a week? That's faster than I can draft a proposal for you.
When we missed our flight, he immediately bought first-class tickets for the next one. On the third night, we got lost in the mountains and ended up in a village late at night. I lost my bag and only had my phone and power bank, but he was prepared, so we could have a hot shower and a warm meal. The next day, he rented a car, and I found out he had brought his driver's license just in case. At that moment, I felt so lucky to be with him. On the last day, I injured my foot, and he even postponed an important meeting to stay with me.
From Emily's stories, I couldn't discern anything suspicious about this Fortune 500 gentleman. Everything seemed normal, yet I couldn't shake off my unease. Out of concern for my friend, I left her with a warning: if something seems too good to be true, be prepared for the cost, or you might end up paying the price yourself.
She responded dismissively, and I wasn't sure if she took it to heart.
Even his travel photos were low-key yet unique.
Look at this one, a small market near the Louvre. So charming, isn't it?
Or a peculiar stone surrounded by wild grass near the historically rich and decaying Roman Colosseum.
And this one, isn't it fascinating how nature reclaims history?
Even his daily meals, though not particularly exquisite, were well-balanced, showing a person who values quality of life.
Look at this meal, it's simple but perfectly balanced. He really knows how to live well.
He was a low-key, sophisticated, and genuinely wealthy middle-aged man who didn't flaunt his wealth. 3 months after Emily confirmed her relationship with the man, she finally agreed to introduce him to me. We arranged to meet at Jean's around 8 p.m. after work. I followed the GPS into the restaurant, mentioned my bestie's name, and was smoothly guided to our reserved table by the waiter. Emily was sitting there alone, looking completely transformed. From her makeup and hair to her clothes and accessories, she exuded the glow of wealth. Even her face was radiant, making an 18-year-old girl envious. The handbag on the table was a new LV spring-summer model, worth a five-figure sum. I shamelessly picked it up, unable to put it down.
It's yours. I have another one.
I hesitated, pulling my hand back.
What's the catch?
The catch is to give him some face when he arrives, don't be too harsh. This bag was bought with his money.
Emily smiled softly, like a young lady from the 50s. If she had a handkerchief or fan, she could easily fit the role. In the past, if I had any objections, she would have pounced on me, locking my neck until I begged for mercy. I suspected that the person in front of me was a ghost wearing Emily's skin. But since the founding of the country, no spirits were allowed. So, it must be the man's influence. Especially after Emily's cryptic comment earlier, I felt even more uneasy.
All right, as long as he is as perfect as you described.
I rolled up my non-existent sleeves, staring at the door with a curious demeanor, eager to see what kind of man could make Emily do a complete 180-degree turn.
The man Emily was so enamored with arrived right on time. His coat and shirt were high quality, and his cufflinks were clearly custom-made, with the initial L on them. This high-ranking executive was named David. He was slightly older but didn't look it. The well-defined muscles under his shirt made it clear why Emily was so eager to be with him. He wasn't late, but since we arrived first, he had prepared a gift as an apology. An LV petite earphone chain accessory and an LV gradient monogram shawl, together worth nearly 5 figures. The tags, packaging, and receipts were all intact. He truly lived up to his reputation. This man seemed to have all the qualities of Emily's dream partner. Despite his outdated name, his appearance screamed elite.
David didn't flaunt his wealth but discreetly consulted Emily before ordering several low-calorie dishes popular among women. Even the dessert was just a fruit platter. Eating the grapes that weren't just grapes and strawberries that weren't just strawberries, easily costing over 4 figures, I suppressed my long-held doubts. This man was too perfect. He was composed and didn't show any signs of impatience. His conversation topics were all about assets and finance, with many obscure terms. Apart from traveling, he had no other hobbies, just work. During the meal, he strongly recommended the benefits of this lifestyle. I felt ashamed for ever doubting him. Some people are willing to change for the right partner, and if this man was Emily's destined one, her transformation was understandable. After dinner, he pulled Emily along to take me home. The affection between the two of them was so overwhelming it could sustain an entire colony of bees. I felt like singing, "I should be under the car, not in it," deeply empathizing with Adu's sentiments in his song. Damn, I was just a third wheel, a glaringly bright light bulb. I shouldn't even be here. Just as I was drowning in regret, the man suddenly asked Emily a question, causing the atmosphere in the car to freeze for a moment.
How's the research on that fund I recommended last time? Weren't you supposed to give me a report these days?
I sat in the back seat, utterly bewildered. For a moment, I felt like I was back in a university classroom, with a professor urging me to finish my thesis, trembling and sweating profusely. Or like during my internship, when the department leader was pushing me to submit a proposal. In any case, this was not the kind of atmosphere one would expect between a couple. Given Emily's personality, I thought she would retort with something like,
What is that? I won't write it.
And I was even ready to intervene, maybe even jump out of the car, claiming I couldn't handle the alcohol. But Emily's response was completely unexpected and left me stunned.
I don't really understand it yet, still researching.
She even seemed unable to meet David's eyes, her head slightly lowered, as if she had committed an unforgivable mistake. It was heart-wrenching to watch. Yet, The great Mr. David ignored this and casually said,
Really? I'll give you some more materials when we get back. Make sure to go through them properly this time.
WTF? Shouldn't he be saying, "It's okay, sweetheart, I'll teach you, or we'll take it slow"? She's your girlfriend, not some secretary or subordinate.
Stop the car!
The vehicle screeched to a halt by the roadside. I stormed out, opened the passenger door, and pulled Emily out.
We have something to do. You can go ahead.
Perhaps my expression was too fierce because David just glanced at Emily and then drove off. Watching the car disappear, Emily asked in confusion,
What's wrong?
Are you sure he loves you?
Emily didn't respond, but it was clear she was hesitating. Although how other couples interact is none of my business, seeing Emily, who used to be so spirited, now acting like a submissive country girl, made me want to explode.
Can you go back to being yourself?
TSK. You're more nagging than my mom.
I recounted the incident to a very close senior. She had been a great help since my school days and was known for keeping secrets. After hearing my story, the first thing senior did was ask me to pull up his Weibo. She went through his posts from 2 years ago to now and came to a shocking conclusion.
His identity checks out, and he is indeed wealthy. But this man is either already married or has a girlfriend. Your bestie is likely the other woman.
I widened my eyes and scrutinized his Weibo again. The man in the photos was impeccably dressed, exuding an air of high-end professionalism. There was no sign of anything amiss, nor any trace of another woman.
Emily said this person is a bit absent-minded in life, but works very hard.
Exactly.
My skills in identifying red flags were all learned from senior, so I could only humbly seek her guidance.
Many successful men don't pay much attention to the details of daily life, especially if they're naturally absent-minded. His overly neat and pressed clothes suggest someone is managing his life for him. So, the absent-minded persona is either a facade or a deliberate cover-up.
Could it be that he hired a housekeeper? The rebuttal only had time to circle in my head before I was cut off by senior.
This outfit is from a private brand that only makes custom couples clothing. They never sell individual pieces. This wristband is a signature item from a niche brand that makes women's accessories. Even among women, few know about it. I only learned about it recently from my bestie.
The more she spoke, the more my heart sank. Many times, senior seemed like a fortune teller. Once she spoke, it was almost certain, with a 90% accuracy rate. But no one could guarantee that the man wouldn't fall into the remaining 10%. Remembering Emily's expression that night, I decided to wait for concrete evidence.
Hey, don't you think this guy looks familiar?
I stared at his face for a long time. He did seem familiar, but having just had dinner with him, that was normal. While senior continued to use online methods to peek into the high-end man's life, I fell asleep with a head full of doubts. On the weekend, my mom dragged me to a shaping class. I had some documents to deliver to a client, so I got up early and drove over. The client lady who was handling the handover was very nice. When she heard I was pressed for time, she graciously agreed to an early morning visit. Given senior's uncanny ability to spot scumbags, I had developed a habit of being cautious. Recognizing someone I should never have met was a big red flag. If he seemed familiar, it meant we had definitely crossed paths before, and not just once or twice. After delivering the documents, I should have left immediately, but I instinctively took a walk around the public area of the neighborhood. And there he was. Behind a half-open door, Emily's man was in a robe, holding a cup of coffee, leisurely admiring his flowers. Of course, they were his own flowers. In a duplex with a garden, he wandered among the blooms, coffee in one hand, and a woman with a revealing chest in the other. They were all over each other, completely unconcerned about being seen. Just as I thought they might start something indecent in broad daylight, thank goodness, he finally noticed me.
You're Emily's friend!
He stated, his memory impressively sharp, though his character was lacking.
What are you doing here?
He even preempted my question. I suppressed my anger, looking at him and the woman, wanting to ask what was going on but feeling foolish. It was obvious. Senior was right. Emily was being deceived. David! Don't you think you owe an explanation? I almost shouted in anger, but the woman's voice was even sharper.
Explain what?
Let's go inside. I'll handle this.
David's attitude towards the old woman was markedly different from when we had dinner. He lacked that superior confidence and seemed more like a docile large dog. He adjusted his robe, looked at me, and asked,
What do you want?
I was amazed at how he could be so self-righteous after being caught. It was as if I was the one in the wrong. Suppressing my disgust, I asked, Who is she?
Does it matter to you?
I laughed in anger. I'm Emily's bestie.
Do you think it matters?
Bestie? What does that mean? Forget what you saw and don't think about telling that silly girl anything.
He stood up, looking down at me as if I were an ant he could crush at any moment.
It's a waste of time.
I clenched my fists and stormed off. I hadn't decided whether to tell Emily about it when she showed up at my place. She handed me her phone as soon as she sat down.
I found some inappropriate photos of me on his phone.
What? I was stunned for a moment. When I saw the photos, I exploded.
There were not only full-body shots, but also close-ups of private areas. Disgusting scumbag. How could he be so vile?
Were you drugged? How else could you have slept so soundly?
Emily was a light sleeper, waking up at the slightest noise, let alone being disturbed by someone.
Probably. A few days ago, we had dinner together. I felt really tired before finishing the meal, and he booked a hotel room nearby for me. The next morning, I was alone. He said he left after settling me in, and I actually believed him. What should I do, sweetie? If these get out, I'm done for.
Don't panic. We'll figure something out.
I hugged her, gently soothing her.
I'll help you think of a plan.
Sweetie, do you think maybe I'm overthinking? Maybe he just took the photos for himself? I could talk to him and ask him not to release them, right?
Seeing Emily still making excuses for the jerk made me furious.
Talk to him? He doesn't care about you at all. He's a scumbag. He even has another woman hidden in Longqing Shaozhu.
What did you say?
I told Emily everything that had happened that day. She sat there, stunned, like someone had hit the pause button. I quickly gathered all the sharp objects in the room, not because I feared she might harm herself, but because I was afraid she might go after him with a knife.
That scumbag.
10 minutes later, Emily finally cursed, and I felt a bit relieved, knowing she had passed the worst of it.
We can't let him get away with this. Let's go settle the score.
Emily was ready to storm out, but I quickly pulled her back.
Are you crazy? The photos are still in his hands. You need to be patient and wait for the right moment.
After calming down, Emily and I devised a detailed plan. The first step was to find a beautiful woman who couldn't be easily swayed. I couldn't do it since I had already shown my face. The only suitable candidate was Senior. She was independent, had a keen eye for jerks, and was skilled enough to handle any danger. She was perfect for the job. When Emily first met the scumbag, she had added me to that group. Adding another person wouldn't be difficult. To be safe, Senior rejected my method and chose to approach him directly. Her persona was that of a seductive yet innocent personal trainer. Her new account was filled with photos that were increasingly alluring but never revealing too much skin. It was the perfect bait. With her innocent face and the stark contrast, even I was almost drawn in, let alone those men. The fish took the bait quickly.
Do you want to join our group? Here's the guide for you. Of course, you can modify it to your liking. It's not mandatory. By the way, there are materials uploaded by other members that you can download for reference.
A week later, the group leader sent a private message, asking if she wanted to join any activities. Senior, using a troubled voice, shared her current dilemma.
I want to go out, but I'm not familiar with the area. The group members don't want to help, and the guides are confusing.
The group leader eagerly sent her a guide. Except for the dates and some details, most of the locations matched the ones Emily had mentioned, including the small village near the scenic spots where she had been trapped. My hands trembled as I held the phone. I signaled Senior to ask for the list of participants. In less than half an hour, the list arrived. Among the dozen or so names, David's was there. Although he used a different account, his photos and posts were identical to the ones Emily had shown me before. Even a blind person could recognize him. There was definitely something fishy, including the group leader. Senior finally remembered where she had seen David before. At that moment, Emily called.
I just found a few more groups and some message records on his phone. I'll send them to you. See if you can use them.
Damn it, I'm just a lamb to the slaughter. The hero saving the damsel in distress was all fake. That scumbag. Pretending to be so affectionate. He's been hitting on other girls while on business trips. The same tricks, not afraid of getting caught. And trying to control me. If I could act now, I'd want to smash him.
Senior chimed in.
I have a junior who was deceived by him too. That person was David.
With some desserts in hand, I visited the client lady again. We chatted about work and personal feelings before steering the conversation towards the neighbors in the community. Under my subtle guidance, she shared a shocking story.
He's infamous in the industry, with too many scandals. His so-called commitment to not marrying is just an excuse to attract more young women.
Over the years, the women around David have changed frequently, yet that older woman in the garden remains. His taste is quite unique.
Exactly. A match made in heaven, he will eventually pay for his actions.
Indeed. I visited the garden house again, but this time David wasn't there. The woman recognized me and was momentarily surprised, but she quickly smiled and invited me in. I got straight to the point. David doesn't seem to be loyal to you. Aren't you angry?
Angry? Why would I be angry?
You abandoned a loving husband for a man who is unfaithful and flirts around. I don't believe you have no regrets.
Are you here for that young girl, Emily? She may have poor taste in men, but she chose her friends well.
So what if I am? Emily is young, beautiful, and in her prime. You said yourself that man isn't good. Why don't you let him go?
Why don't you advise your friend to let go?
If it were that easy, I would have done it already. She just won't listen. In that moment, her gaze was full of certainty. She pushed a cup of rose-scented tea towards me, accompanied by a knowing smile.
Little girl, youth and beauty will eventually fade. A woman needs something to protect herself and keep a man. Finish your tea and go home. The adult world is not for someone like you.
As she spoke, her eyes drifted towards the study. Through the transparent glass door, I saw a computer and a wall filled with books. I breathed a sigh of relief. If what the client lady said was true, and David had given up all those young beauties for this older woman, staying with her for years, it spoke volumes. If it were true love, David wouldn't be flirting with Emily. Something unusual was definitely going on. I came today to uncover it. From the moment I entered, I deliberately acted naive to make her underestimate me.
People often reveal important information when they are complacent or relaxed. So, the thing that supposedly keeps David tied to her must be in there. After finishing my tea, I left, looking dejected. The plan could proceed to the next step.
I'm gathering evidence around David. Meanwhile, you should start staking out near the garden.
For the past few days, I had been hiring different people to distribute health pamphlets from the hospital in the neighborhood under the guise of promoting women's health. These pamphlets covered topics like the transmission and dangers of HIV and the causes and prevention of cervical cancer. Today, the pamphlet was a promotional flyer for a nearby hospital's health checkup, with a business card stapled to it. The name on the card was my friend's, but the phone number was mine.
She will call, trust me.
And she did, even before I had left the neighborhood.
Is this Dr. Chen? I'd like to schedule a checkup. Is it really free?
After confirming it was, the woman drove straight to the hospital. A few hours later, I had a photo of her health report, which I then sent to her ex-husband. Half an hour later, he replied.
I'll help.
A few days later, Emily brought a file folder to my house. Inside were mostly WeChat chat logs and photos, totaling over a dozen documents.
This is just part of it. These people are involved in something far more sinister than just deceit.
Following her guidance, I found a particularly thick stack of A4 papers. Among the dozen pages of messages, some were highlighted in red marker, standing out prominently.
They use various dating apps to attract women with seemingly well-off men, then use a specific set of manipulative tactics to control and reshape their personalities, eventually leading them to spend money and invest. When they run out of money, they are coerced into taking loans. If they refuse, they are threatened with compromising photos.
She looked exhausted, her eyes red and her voice low.
Most of them give in, drained of every last bit of their resources, and then discarded. Some fall into a life of vice, while others develop severe depression, even contemplating the unthinkable.
Manipulative tactics to control and reshape personalities. Each word drilled into my mind, bringing a chilling sensation. Was this why Emily suddenly started doubting herself back then? At that moment, I regretted not taking it seriously sooner. If I had, my bestie wouldn't be at the mercy of those photos now. I had thought it was just a ploy to keep Emily from leaving him, but the reality was far more sordid.
It's okay, it's all in the past now.
I didn't know what expression I had, but it certainly wasn't a relaxed one. Emily looked at me with her swollen, tear-stained eyes, filled with sorrow and despair.
If the information leaks, they fear retaliation. And such shameful matters, once exposed, would strip them of their will to live. Just wanting to survive is so difficult.
Yes, I know. That's why we made this plan, right?
While it's true that some girls are drawn to wealth, it doesn't justify manipulating their lives. We saw determination in each other's eyes. A call came in, a man's voice saying,
Check the cloud drive.
The evidence provided by the woman's ex-husband was more comprehensive and detailed, even more explicit and brutal. Taking several deep breaths to steady myself, I read the summary aloud in a hoarse voice. He said that some of the more attractive ones, even after being drained of money, wouldn't be let go. They would be gathered for high-end commercial purposes, as companions. From the documents, we learned that the woman in the garden was one of the masterminds. She had even impersonated a deputy director of a government legal office. It was surreal. Tired of being a villain, she gave herself a title? Making money while ruining young girls' lives. From planning to execution, her involvement was everywhere, while the group leaders and David were merely executors of the plan. No wonder David was so obedient to her. He was just a dog, after all. Truly despicable, willing to do anything for money. In about half an hour, an article titled "The Scandalous History of a Fake Deputy Director" went viral on Weibo. The article vividly described how the so-called deputy director of the legal office of City, Lily, used a fake identity to fabricate evidence, frame her ex-husband, seize his rightful property, and even kept multiple lovers. The evidence was so compelling that netizens unanimously condemned her and frantically tagged relevant authorities to bring her to justice. Soon, a phone call came in.
Who are you? Why did you do this? Take that article down immediately.
The voice was panicked, likely not just because of the Weibo article but also due to the threats she had received following the exposure.
Opened a voice-changing app and altered my voice to a hoarse mechanical tone.
Taking it down is possible. We can even clarify that it was just material for a novel. But we can't do it for free, can we?
What do you want? Money? A job?
Neither. I just want you to release the evidence of David's illegal activities and ensure he gets the punishment he deserves.
Do you think I'm stupid? This matter has spread so quickly that someone will soon come to investigate. Do you think those official inspectors will believe you just because you say so?
So, you are scared? I sneered inwardly.
Don't worry. The only thing exposed is your fake identity and your divorce from your husband. At most, you'll get a year in prison. Besides, if you agree, your ex-husband will mobilize his entire family to help clear your name, claiming that the Weibo posts are fake news.
You?
Think it over. If I don't hear from you in half an hour, I have even bigger news to release. By then, it won't be a matter of just a year or two. Sacrifice others or yourself, it's up to you.
I didn't plan to give her much time to bargain and hung up the phone. People are inherently selfish. I believed she would follow the script I had given her. 10 minutes later, the phone rang again.
I choose to expose David.
Suppressing my excitement, I continued to give her instructions.
Post the evidence of his illegal activities online, saying that you fabricated those things to defame you because he knew you had evidence against him. If he gets arrested, I'll help clear your name.
Don't worry. All we want is for David to go to jail.
After hanging up, I opened Weibo and refreshed the page a few times before seeing Lily's clarification post. Not only did she follow my instructions and blame everything on David, but she also concocted a love-hate story. Her writing was simply brilliant. Watching her performance, I made another call, this time using my real voice.
David! Check Weibo! That woman Lily is accusing you of being involved in illegal activities and seducing young girls for profit. Is this true?
After a few seconds of silence, the man's furious curses came through, followed by the sound of heavy objects colliding, and the call abruptly ended. Seeing the evidence of Lily's misdeeds posted on David's Weibo, I finally breathed a sigh of relief. After resting for a few minutes, I called Emily.
Bring the evidence and report to the police.
A year after the incident, all the participants gathered for a meal. During the dinner, we talked about the event again. After the scandal broke, David's verified status as a shareholder of a top 500 domestic company was exposed as fake. He only had dividend rights, not decision-making power, and eventually, even his dividend rights were stripped away. Lily had even more dirt on her, including causing someone to lose a pregnancy and snatching away married men. Fortunately, justice prevailed. With the added crime of impersonating a government official, Lily was sentenced to life imprisonment. David and those group leaders received sentences ranging from 10 to several decades. As for us, we were reprimanded and educated, and after promising not to re-offend, we were allowed to go home. Although there was no way to compensate the girls who had been hurt, at least they no longer had to live with the burden. Everyone felt that this was a perfect ending. Only my bestie, drunk and crying, yelled at me.
I'll never fall in love again. Boo-hoo. I'll spend the rest of my life with you.
I rubbed my forehead, feeling a headache coming on. Well, it seems I can't escape a life of worry.